In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. The Syrian story is one that stirs emotions where pain and hope are intertwined. The Syrian story is a tale of struggle between good and evil, between the weak truth that has no supporter but God and the powerful falsehood that possesses all the tools of killing and destruction. Our story is a lesson from the annals of history and a true embodiment of noble human values. In this eternal battle between truth and falsehood, the Syrian story is told to narrate a new chapter in this struggle. A chapter that shines brightly with creativity, filled with confrontation, determination, sacrifice, devotion, adherence to noble values, good traditions, earnest preparation, and tireless work, followed by reliance on God. All these are tools that help truth overcome falsehood. Madam President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, Your Majesties, Excellencies, Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, peace and God's mercy and blessings be upon you. I have come to you from Damascus, the capital of history and the cradle of civilizations, that beautiful land which taught the world the meaning of civilization and the value of humanity and peaceful coexistence, becoming a beacon for the world to follow. However, Syria, for 60 years, has been under the yoke of an unjust, tyrannical regime that is ignorant of the value of the land it ruled and oppresses its kind and peaceful people. Our people endured injustice, oppression, and deprivation for many long years until they rose up, demanding their freedom and dignity, only to be met with killing, torture, burning, rape, and displacement. The former regime, in its war against our people, used the most heinous tools of torture and killing. Barrel bombs, chemical weapons, field executions, torture in prisons and forced displacement, and he stirred up sectarian and ethnic strife, used drugs as a weapon against the people and the world, tore our country apart from end to end, destroyed its most important historical cities, brought in foreign forces, militias and gangs from all corners of the earth, and mortgaged our beautiful country. The previous regime killed nearly 1 million people, tortured hundreds of thousands, displaced about 14 million people, and demolished nearly 2 million homes over the heads of their inhabitants. Ladies and gentlemen, the weak people were targeted with chemical weapons in more than 200 documented attacks. Yes, our children, women, and youth inhaled toxic gases. The regime did all this to silence the voice of truth. And despite all these crimes, it ended any political language for a solution, no matter what was offered to it. So the only option left for this people was to organize their ranks and prepare for the great historic confrontation in a swift military action, a confrontation that toppled a criminal system that had lasted for 60 years, along with all its supporters. It was a military action filled with mercy and goodness, prioritizing forgiveness and tolerance, a military battle that did not cause the displacement of a single person or the killing of any civilian. It was a victory without vengeance or enmity, in which the people regained their rights and triumphed over their oppression. Yes, we won the battle for the oppressed, the tortured, and the forcibly displaced. We won for the mothers of the martyrs and the missing. We won for all of you, O world. We won for the future of our children and yours, and we paved the way for the return of refugees to their homes. We destroyed the drug trade that used to flow from our country to yours during the previous regime. With this victory, Syria transformed from a country exporting crises to a historic opportunity for stability, peace, and prosperity for Syria and the entire region. Ladies and gentlemen, the popular solidarity that emerged pushed some parties to try to stir up sectarian tensions and internal fighting in pursuit of division projects and tearing the country apart once again. However, the Syrian people had enough awareness to prevent the continuation of disasters and the return of Syria to square one. The Syrian state worked to form fact-finding committees and granted the United Nations permission to investigate as well, and they reached similar results with unprecedented transparency in Syria. I pledge to bring everyone whose hands are stained with the blood of innocents to justice. In the same context, Israeli threats against our country have not ceased since December 8th until today, and Israeli policies are acting in contradiction to the international position supporting Syria and its people in an attempt to exploit the transitional phase, which exposes the region to a new spiral of conflicts whose end no one knows. In response, Syria is using dialogue and diplomacy to overcome this crisis and pledges its commitment to the 1974 disengagement agreement and calls on the international community to stand by it in facing these dangers and to respect the sovereignty and unity of Syrian territory. Ladies and gentlemen, from the moment the previous regime fell, we set a policy with clear objectives based on several pillars: balanced diplomacy, security stability, and economic development. We worked to fill the power vacuum, called for an inclusive national dialogue, announced a government of qualified individuals, and strengthened the principle of participation. We established a national commission for transitional justice and another for the missing to provide fairness and justice for those who were wronged. Now we are moving forward with elections for the people's representatives in the Legislative Council. We have restructured civil and military institutions by dissolving all previous formations under under the principle of restricting arms to the state alone. Through intensive diplomatic activity, Syria has restored its international relations, established regional and global partnerships, and has seen most sanctions gradually lifted. We demand their complete removal so they are not used as a tool to shackle the Syrian people and confiscate their freedom once again. Investment laws have been amended, and major regional and international companies have begun to enter the Syrian market and contribute to reconstruction through investment. Today, Syria is rebuilding itself by laying the foundations for a new state, building institutions and regulatory laws that guarantee the rights of all without exception. Syria is a country with a historical civilization and culture, and it deserves to be a state of law that protects everyone, safeguards rights, guarantees freedoms, and allows life to flourish under its protection, closing the chapter on a miserable past so we can restore Syria's glory, pride, and dignity. And as a continuation of the Syrian story, today I stand before you to declare the triumph of truth over falsehood and say, truth has come and falsehood has vanished. Indeed, falsehood is ever bound to perish, and here is Syria today, returning to the place it rightfully deserves among the nations of the world. This declaration is a reflection of the will of a great people who have forged glory throughout the ages and who have always risen from the rubble to reclaim their rights, freedom, and dignity. On behalf of the Syrian people, I extend my gratitude and appreciation to everyone who stood by the Syrian people's cause, supported them in their ordeal, and welcomed them into their countries. I also thank all the countries and peoples of the world who rejoiced at the triumph of the Syrian people's will and who stand today alongside Syria on its path toward peace and prosperity. I especially thank Turkey, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, all Arab and Islamic countries, the United States of America, and the European Union. Before concluding, I would like to emphasize that the pain Syria has endured is something we would wish upon no one, for we are among the peoples who most deeply feel the suffering caused by war and destruction. Therefore, we support the people of Gaza. Therefore, we support the people of Gaza, its children, its women, and all other peoples who are subjected to violations and aggression. We call for an immediate end to the war. In conclusion, the Syrian story is not over yet. It continues to write a new chapter, one titled Peace, Prosperity, and Development. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
As soon as the Council of Ministers convenes, I would like to thank the Director of the Syrian Arab Delegation. The Council will now be chaired by His Excellency Zoran Milanovic, the Director of the Croatian